So I've been sitting here for the last probably 2 hours reading comments and responding to them. And I keep seeing some of the same things over and over. So I want to address that while I'm fired up and like really in the mood for this. We talk so much. There's like a million and one videos out there about narcissistic abuse and the things that people do to abuse another person. Those things, it's not that hard to find, right? I mean, we can type it into the search and we're going to get list. You can type it into Google and you're going to get a whole bunch of descriptions. But as much as I care about that, so that we could recognize the thing that's happening, what about what it does to you? What about what it does to you as an actual person? What about what you live with, what you carry forward after that? So, I'm not going to be able to give you every single feeling, emotion, thought, any of those things. So, I'm not going to make some kind of false promise. I don't have the entire list of things, but what I can tell you is the way that it changes you, the way that you spend years asking yourself, am I a good person? Did I do that? Did I cause it? Was it my fault? Could I have been different? What's wrong with me? How come people don't like me? Why would somebody treat me like that? I gave everything that I could, and that's still how I was treated. And then the nights that you sit there and you remember things and you feel pretty bad because you're like, damn, they were laughing at me. Like, they were laughing at me, and I was in love, and they laughed at me. I was a joke. The whole time I was a joke. I was this insignificant thing, and my purpose in that relationship was to be abused. My purpose in that relationship was more so because somebody else had the need or want or desire to control another human being, and what made them happy was watching me suffer. And so when we start thinking about those things, the things that like the feelings that come up, the way you move through the world, it changes. I spent probably 15 years wondering, like, am I actually a good person? And when people would come into my life, I was so suspicious, so unbelievably suspicious because I thought every single person was like, they're just out to get me, they're out to do something. I became paranoid about other people's intentions or motives or agendas when they wanted to talk to me because I was being told that everybody that I was friends with and every single one of my family members had betrayed me, and I didn't realize. I had no idea, and the examples were so small and just yeah, they were believable. They were made to be believable, like little evidences. And then, of course, when you're told that you're gullible and that you don't actually see what's going on around you, and they present you with some other information, it is kind of like, oh man, maybe I didn't see that. Maybe I really didn't know. And then you start to think like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I trust myself? And then that's something else that we live with is that self-trust. Can I trust my intuition? Can I trust the feeling that I have when I walk into a room? Can I trust the people who are around me? I don't know because I can't trust myself. So how do I make an accurate judgment? How do I do that? And then what starts to creep up is anxiety. The anxiety of not knowing. You have some feeling that's happening in your body. You have thoughts. Sometimes it feels really good. It always ends pretty badly. Or you start to trust somebody and then you're being told that there was a betrayal. and then you feel really dumb about it, and then internally, something is going on. There is a mismatch. I thought I could trust and I was wrong. I thought I knew, but I was wrong. And then eventually, for a lot of people, the relationship ends. And now there's an even bigger situation because now you're starting to see all of the things. And now it's even more confusing because now you have to separate what did this person tell me? Was any of it true? Was any of it a fact? Did I just cut off these people who actually loved me and cared about me and wanted the best for me because I believed this? Or did they actually tell him or her things that I didn't know? Like, what? And you can see how confusing that is. And then you live in a state of confusion, and you're supposed to go to work that way, and you're supposed to raise children that way, and you're supposed to function that way when you don't even know what reality is on some level. Like, obviously, most of us know it's Tuesday morning. I got to get up. I got to go to work. I got to get dressed. I got to brush my hair or make an impromptu video and just throw a thing in your hair. Um, we know those things. But when it comes to relationships, everything is questionable. All of it is questionable. And that is where that internal turmoil comes from. We can very easily get depressed about it because we're so confused that we don't know how to make a decision. We don't know what to trust, what's real, what's not real. And then when it comes to parenting and you have a child that loves the other parent and wants to spend time with the other parent, and the other parent is intentionally planting things so that that child will eventually turn against you. But the things that they're planting into that child are harming the kid. And then what happens on your end, I think it's more valuable for me to talk about the parents who are in survival mode, not the parents who are actively working on things and working on themselves, but the parents who are in survival mode who then have to deal with this child who comes home and you're so confused because again, the kid is telling you things like, they're not really my sisters or they're not really my brothers, or, because maybe you had kids with somebody else afterward. And now there's a division that's happening in your home and you know where it's coming from, but you can't control where it's coming from because the other person also has rights. And now you're constantly triggered because even though you're away, the person is still present on some level in your life. And it really causes situations because there is that internal frustration and there is that internal constant threat of what is this person going to do next? What are they actually planning to do? What is coming next? And if their communication lines are open, they're probably still feeding you stories about this person said this or your kid said that, or they'll make up stories that your children told them things that the kids really never said. And now you're feeling defeated and hurt and destroyed and like, oh my gosh, I'm just trying to be a good parent. I'm trying to do all of these things. And now you're looking at the kid and you're like, why is this kid betraying me? Why is the kid saying these things? Like, I've literally never done any of those things. I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying. And you stay in that survival mode. So now here's another part of you that has been impacted because now the part of you that wants to raise a healthy kid, you probably start to overparent or become a helicopter parent, or nervous parent, always worried, trying to manage everything in the kid's environment so that the child never has to feel the same level of pain that you felt or you experienced because nobody protected you. And it's such a complicated cycle. I really need to spend some time. I've written it in the book that I'm writing, but as far as a visual goes, I think we need a visual to actually go through a timeline because even when I say to adults, I'm assuming, well, obviously everybody on the other end of this is an adult who's probably been in this kind of a relationship, but a lot of us come from parents who also have these behaviors. And one of the biggest roadblocks that I have faced as a therapist is when I meet with somebody and I can clearly see, like, okay, some of the things your parents did were really abusive, but I can't say that because then the person's probably going to shut down. Because here's the truth, even the most well meaning parents had parents that probably had struggle. You could have the most well-meaning parents who are absolutely some of the most neglectful people, that you've ever encountered, and then you meet somebody who gives you a little bit of attention so that they can get you into a relationship, and you think, "Wow, somebody's finally paying attention to me. I'm not being neglected anymore." If you have that word, most of us don't have that word. We just know that, we think like, "Oh, my parents don't care about me." Or you develop the language of I'm unlovable and the two people who are supposed to love me don't even love me or care about me. And that is an open door for somebody to walk through and say, "Oh, wow, you're so beautiful," or "That color looks really nice on you." And they bring you flowers or chocolate or whatever the thing is that you like. They pay attention to one small detail and capitalize on it. And then before you know it, you're in that relationship with that person and you're going through all of those feelings that you felt as a kid, only sometimes a little bit worse. But when we pause and we trace it back, it's like, okay, so my parents probably weren't perfect and they probably made a lot of mistakes because they were raised by people who did the same thing. And now there's you. And that changes the way you go through life. If you are 7 years old and you already feel like nobody cares about you and nobody believes you, or you're 12 and nobody's protecting you, and grown men are hitting on you and telling you how mature you are, which, that's one of the disgusting things that I didn't realize until I was probably 45 years old, that I was looking at some pictures from back in the day, and, I was like, "Oh my gosh." When they were saying I was mature, they weren't talking about, like, me as a person, because I definitely was not. They were talking about my physical features, and then it started to click, like, wow, that is, like, really disgusting, and I didn't realize it because I was 14. How or 12 even, how would I realize it? I had no freaking clue. I didn't know shit about shit back then. Um but there are things that you do realize when people are getting in your space and people are trying to touch you in a way that you don't want to be touched, but nobody's ever told you how to say no. You've never seen an example of that in your house. Maybe you were so neglected that nobody even noticed anything about you. So how do you speak up? And all of those things, as much as we can lock them away and maybe not remember parts of it and maybe say, "I can't recall," we remember inside. And every bit of that changes us, and every bit of that changes who we become and how we go through our life. So my point was, as much as the videos about what a narcissist does, what coercive control is, it is important to understand what we'll call the mechanism of it, which are their tactics. some of the lines that they use, but I think the most important thing for you to do so that you can actually heal is start to look at yourself and start to ask questions like, okay, they did this behavior to me. How did that change me as a person? And so for me personally, some of the things that changed was I didn't trust anybody. I was always suspicious. I was always paranoid. I didn't want to make friends. I didn't want to be friends. I desperately, desperately wanted friends. I desperately wanted to have like that one girlfriend, that one group of friends. I really wanted to do things with them, but I didn't trust them. I couldn't. How could I trust them? I couldn't trust anything that came from me because how could I have been in a relationship like that? And I had a baby when I turned 17 exactly 2 months to the day before she was born, and her dad was way older than I was, and, so it like me being able to make friends was very limited. I had a ninth grade education. I didn't finish high school, and I didn't get my GED until I was 27 years old because it had been programmed into me that I was too stupid. And I would spend most of the time, I mean, when I thought about it, I thought about applying for jobs, and then I was like, "Well, I'm probably not smart enough to get that job. I probably can't do that because I don't really understand math, and, I can write a sentence, but I don't know how to use a comma, or I always forget where periods go, even though I know they go at the end of the sentence. But the way I talk, a sentence could be, 20 pages without a pause. So, it was very difficult. But the belief is what's important. The way I was seeing myself and the way I was experiencing life. So there were a couple things, and this is something that I hear from a lot of people as well, is I don't want to be a victim. I refuse to be a victim. And at the same time, we're saying, I don't want to be a victim and I refuse to be a victim. We also carry the belief that we're not smart enough to do the next thing. We're not good enough with money. Nobody actually likes us. People are going to betray us. We are unlovable. We are unworthy. And everyone knows that we're actually the bad ones, that we're the ones who caused this, that we're the ones who are mentally unstable. And that mentally unstable, I'll tell you, when I have women come in today and they tell me, "Well, my husband thinks that I'm mentally unstable," that is such a red flag for me because usually when somebody is saying you are mentally unstable, it's because they are creating the environment in which you do act that way sometimes. Maybe you do freak out. Maybe you do get upset and throw the cell phone on the floor and smash it because you just don't know what to do anymore because all of your options have been taken away. Because being able to have a reasonable conversation doesn't exist because being understood is absolutely impossible. That's frustrating to anybody. I don't care how many skills you have. For me personally, today, I just walk away from it. But me, 35 years ago, I guess it would be, yeah, yeah, actually it would. Like, I was like 14 years old, and I meet this guy who's like 18. I mean, first of all, no, absolutely effing not. No, that I don't care. It's wrong. It is wrong on every single level. Wrong. It should have never have happened, but it did. And it changed me, and it changed the direction of my life. It changed what I believed about myself. It changed what I thought I was capable of doing. And that is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this, because it does change us. And we need to be able to look at those areas of our life and we need to be able to say, I am not too stupid. I have the ability to learn. And as long as I have the ability to learn, it doesn't matter how old I am. I'm going to go and I'm going to learn something. And with learning something, we could stop studying them. You know the hell that you lived through. I think you've probably at this point had enough validation. And I get it. Sometimes you need a little bit more reinforcement, but you know enough. You know enough. You know exactly what gaslighting is. You know what Darvo is. You know how they trick you and how they turn things around, how they intentionally create situations where you look unstable because it's impossible for you to ever be understood because the whole point is to not understand you and to drive you crazy. That's all there is to it. That's the intention, but you are lovable, and that's something that they can't take away from you. They can convince you that you are not lovable, but that's a belief, and beliefs change. I used to believe that peas were the most disgusting thing on the planet, and today I actually enjoy some peas. They're really not that bad, but they were beliefs. Had old beliefs. Beliefs can change. Whatever somebody has made you believe about yourself through abuse, through coercion, through living with narcissistic personalities, through having parents that were neglectful, through having friends that betrayed you, partners that betrayed you, you've developed a collection of beliefs about yourself, and beliefs can be changed. We can change our beliefs. You are smart enough. You are capable. You can do the things. You do probably need a support system. We don't have to be paranoid for the rest of our lives. I don't know if you've experienced this, but I remember walking into the grocery store and I would hear somebody laughing like 3 aisles away. And I would automatically assume that at some point they must have seen me and they were laughing at me for some reason. That's not okay. And you know what? It wasn't that there was something innately wrong with me. I had symptoms that developed because of the environments that I had lived in. I don't know where your stuff began, but I think I've said this before in other videos. It's not the right time for me to discuss my full personal story. But what I will say is for me, it started at 3 years old and it pretty much lasted until I was probably like 27, 28 years old. And then from there, it took me probably about 10 years of constant thinking and processing and acknowledging and accepting before I was actually able to look at the situations for what they were and say, oh my gosh, okay, here's the pattern. Here's this thing, and here's how this thing leads to that thing. We don't study ourselves enough because we've been told that if we study ourselves, then we are a narcissist, that we are so self absorbed and we're so this and we're so that. That it's okay to watch videos all day long about how people abuse us. What about what it's doing to us? It is okay to study yourself. It is okay to look at, here are my symptoms. When did I first notice that I had this symptom? Where did this come from? When does it get triggered? When do I feel more activated? What does that go back to? What is the belief? Who taught me this? Whose voice am I hearing when these thoughts pop in? Like, "You're too stupid." I can trace that one right back, like, right back. I know exactly where that originated from, at least the impactful origination of it. What happens with those words is we start to say them in our own voice, and then it sounds like I'm just abusing myself, which is also something that we do. When the abuser is no longer present, we pick up where the abuser leaves off. And again, this is why it's so important to study yourself. Look at the symptoms, look at the things that you think about, that you're feeling. How did it change your life? And, you know, I also used to be the person who would say, like, I'll never know what my life would have been, and that's not fair. I don't condone any of the behavior or any of the things that I've experienced, that you've experienced, that the kids right now are experiencing. I don't condone any of it. But what I can say for myself, for where I am today, is I needed all of those things to happen the way they did happen, as painful as they were, because all of those things taught me how to look for these patterns and how to spot them. And not only did it do that, but it gave me the words and the language that I use right now, like in this moment, to communicate to you what these experiences are like from the inside so that you can feel seen, so that you know that you are not alone, that somebody else has lived through this, and more from life is possible. There's a lot more that's possible. And I always think of it as this person or people tried to put a burden on me. And for a long time, I carried that burden until I realized that the burden doesn't belong to me. The burden belongs to them. What I have is the wound, and it is my job to heal the wound. And I don't know if you have ever had a cut or a burn or anything on you. I don't care how much stuff you put in Neosporin band-aids, like honey, I don't care what you put on it. You can put as much as you want on the surface of it. That the surface is not where it heals. Nothing heals on the surface. Everything heals from the inside out. And that is where studying yourself is most valuable and so important, because you can do all of the surface stuff. You can do all of the symptoms, but you have to get inside. You have to understand yourself and you have to know yourself. And we have to be able to look at, how did these things change me? How did they shape me? How did I become who I am? And when we figure out how I became who I am, oh, so much healing happens. So much healing happens, because a lot of people carry things forward like, I should have known better. I shouldn't have this. I shouldn't have that. Honey, none of those are your burden. That's all the stuff that I'm saying that we have to give back. The wound is yours, unfairly yours, but that's what you are carrying. And we have to heal it from the inside out. The burden belongs to them. You don't need to carry the stone anymore. You don't have to continue to drag that around. Okay, so this was going to be like a quick 10 or 15-minute video that I was just going to hop on for. And of course, we've probably gone all around the world because I didn't have anything in front of me that just said, these are the points that you want to hit in this video. Instead, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna give it from the heart today, right now, because those comments, a lot of the things that people write are very powerful. And I just see how these experiences change what people believe about themselves, and what you think is possible for you. I can promise you that anything an abuser told you about yourself is complete bullshit. And you don't have to believe that. You get to choose what you believe in today, starting now. And actually, if you want to give me a comment, let me know, what is the thing that you're going to choose to believe about yourself today. Because the thing that I choose to believe about you is, regardless of where you came from and regardless of what you've been through, you have always been lovable and you never deserved any of those things to happen. And I am really sorry that nobody was there to protect you or to have a conversation with you to show you that life can be different. But I'm here right now and I'm telling you that that is the truth. All right. So thank you for being here. I appreciate every single one of you. And if this video will help somebody, please share it with them. Otherwise, like, comment, subscribe, hype, super hype, whatever that is. I'm not real sure what that is, but all right, that's it. And thanks for being here. Real quick add-in. I know that I said the video was over, but as I was editing it, I heard myself say that we sometimes might look at our children and think, "How can you betray me?" I just want to be really clear about that. That's what it feels like. That is a feeling. The child, number one, is not responsible for anything that you feel as an adult, as a parent. Our children should never be responsible for our feelings or emotions. If the child is being used and it feels like a betrayal to you, it's a child. The child has no idea that they are being used. They are oblivious to the abuse. If you think back to your own childhood and you were abused, you probably didn't recognize it until way later because it was just normal. It was just what happened in your life and you didn't know. So I just wanted to clarify very quickly that children do not intentionally betray their parents, and that it is a feeling that we sometimes have when we are living in survival mode and we look at the child and we may feel betrayed. And that is what happens in survival mode. And it is very unhealthy. And we should never look at our children as though they are betraying us. Because again, that is a feeling, that is an emotion, that is not a fact. And if the child is being used as a way to abuse you or as a way to kind of continue the control or the manipulation, the child is separate from those actions. Those actions are being installed or programmed into the child through the abusive ex. Okay, so I could not let that go because that is really important and children are way too valuable to ever have to carry anything like that. Okay, sorry, that's what I got, but I had to fix it.